and so forth that people have long since forgotten about. Turkeys, multiple breeds of turkeys that can take this environment and do very well and operate, by the way, on very little input, very low cost. Katahdin sheep is a classic example. They're hair sheep. They don't do anything for you if you're looking for wool, but they're great for meat. They can be also for dairy, but meat is the big thing with Katahdins. Devon cows. Why get involved with high input cows when you can do Devons and get great quality beef off Devons with very little expense and no vet bills and all the rest of it? They'll give birth in the fields with no assistance. Sheep that'll give birth in the fields with no assistance, and so forth, because they're the breeds that do that. They're the tough breeds. And while their production level is lower, say, than Angus beef, your input expense is very much lower too, so your profit can be as good or better with those kinds of breeds. But the other thing about those breeds ties into your question about building construction on easement lands and so forth. You avoid that, and you avoid zoning issues as well when you stick with minimal building and when you stick with movable building as much as possible, and all of a sudden you don't have taxes to pay, you don't have zoning ordinances to worry about, and so on.
I think it depends on the easement, because some of the easements
yes.
do allow for agricultural
Yeah,
construction.
easements vary a lot.
Yeah. But a lot of the organizations that hold easements, like the Fish and Game and Nature Conservancy now, are newly recognizing agriculture as a viable way to use their lands. They're rewriting some of their agreements, which is exciting because they haven't.
Yeah, Chuck?
Well, I think the other thing too on the sort of conservation land, wildlife and whatnot, a well-managed farm probably encourages a lot more wildlife than you have.
Yes, absolutely.
If it's managed, is concerned.
Yeah, you'll get more wildlife than you will in a woodland that's left alone, or scrub. We have a lot of scrub and we have a lot of pole sage timber, and that just doesn't have a whole lot of value. It doesn't have diversity for wildlife, and it doesn't have production value much. It's still there, though. I mean, it's great that it's there, so it's there for future potential. But let's bring pastures back into some of that. Let's have silviculture, which produces trees as well as livestock. So, yeah.
I was thinking in our master plan, we have a statement about the working landscape.
Yes, the working landscape. Yeah. And my interest in a lot of this, it does relate to environmental things. I am, by the way, a professor of environmental conservation. That's the title that the university has given me from when I was hired. So I am interested in environmental science, environmental affairs, environmental studies. I am interested in wildlife. I am interested in good quality forestry and forest management. I'm interested in natural area preservation. I'm interested in wilderness preservation, all of that other good stuff. But I'm also interested in maximizing food production. Yes?
I know your background. Why did you focus so much on food when all was said and done? Why did you go?
Well, maybe it's because I enjoy good food. I often answer a question by saying I follow my bliss. I say this to students all the time as a way of living. I couldn't have necessarily predicted where I would go each decade. I've been almost 43 years teaching in university, almost 38 at UNH. But I reinvent myself over periods of time, from what I did earlier, from when you knew me at UNH as a specialist in environmental policy and natural resource policy, and that's probably the way you identify me, from those years in the 70s and 80s, early 80s, to a person deeply involved in questions of ethics and values, deeper philosophical questions, and our future, and so on and so forth, to questions of energy, particularly oil. And I did, as you folks, I went through the 70s oil embargo and oil experience in Durham and at UNH. And I know how Durham reacted, and I know how UNH reacted, my town and my employer, in the 70s. And I am marked with that, as you perhaps are marked by that experience of the gas lines. And the real anxiety, by the way, in the late 70s and into 1980, real anxiety about the future, and lots of people cutting off sections of their houses because they couldn't afford to heat them. And God only knows what's going to happen in Strafford County with the cut in oil assistance to many, many people in this county and across New Hampshire and Maine this year. And I'm asking myself how many houses are going to burn down from faulty wood stoves and other things of that sort. How many people are going to die from, well, we had a near-death experience in Durham day before yesterday with the generators. Now everybody's running generators. We got a blackout, and sure enough, a whole family nearly died on Durham Point. And then the fire department came quick. No fire. It was carbon monoxide, which you can't smell, as you know. And they were very close to death, and their kids were very close to death in Durham. It's only a matter of time before that happens again. And it's only a matter of time before one of the neighbors' houses burns down, and I hope that they don't set my house on fire as a result of some stupidity with wood stoves, but particularly with generators and candles and falling asleep with candles burning and all the rest of it that's going to come. Aside from people freezing to death, and we may have a few of those in Strafford County. Think about that. We may have a few of those. And of course, frozen pipes. How much damage is going to be done to how many people's houses because the pipes froze, because they let it get a little bit too cold in January or February and didn't drain the pipes. You see all of this coming. You see it here in Strafford County, and you see it among the lower income people of Strafford County, very certainly. But you see it in places like Durham, where people go crazy with generators the moment the lights go out. You know, a few days the lights are out, and houses are getting cold.
My generator, I couldn't keep all my frozen canned fruit.
I know it's a challenge, and
it's a closed circle.
Right, and we do what we can. But you know what?
I still have my stove from 1973 that heats the whole house.
Yeah.
It's out of code.
Yeah. The answer to a lot of these challenges, by the way, is community. And part of the answer to that is knowing who has freezers and freezer space and refrigerators in other parts of town that maybe didn't lose electricity, and who can trade, and where can you bring your stuff, and where can they bring their stuff when you got electricity and they're out. It's called community. And you don't even have to really seriously know the people or like them or whatever to cooperate, saying, hey, we got a common interest here. Let's cooperate so that we assist each other, not for altruistic reasons, but for practical reasons.
At the end of October, my 15 cubic foot freezer is full.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a,
and I
see that's a,
see Wayne.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you see that's a problem, and we all have different needs. We used to have one of those in the basement, but it's now my wife and I. The kids are out of the home. We don't need that, so we have a much smaller freezer. Yeah, admittedly, you got to. And by the way, the farmers got big challenges with all of this. Big challenges. But our forebears succeeded, and if they didn't succeed, if they weren't sustainable, you and I wouldn't be here. They figured it out, and we've got to figure out, and we've got to have plans for this sort of thing. And I keep resisting, you know, buying a generator.
Managers send an email if you have a portable, you read the email.
Yeah.
To put ice in the refrigerator. What happened to the old ice house?
Yeah. Yeah. And our towns are increasingly giving advice to people, including a little advice like, if you think that there's going to be an outage tonight with a storm that's coming, change the temperature in your refrigerator to make it colder so that whatever in the refrigerator will last longer during the outage. There's all of that, and I'm not saying it isn't tough. I know it's tough, although it's tougher on other people than it is on me, and I really fear for the farmers and people like that. But look at the horror of Vermont with the floods and the farms. Oh my God, it's terrible. I went over there and I looked, and I almost wish I didn't go. I was very curious. I had an opportunity to go, and I went and I saw the terrible suffering of the Vermonters. We don't know what suffering is like compared to what those people went through in September with Irene, with the floods. You know, it's incredible over there. Yeah.
Just as a point of humor, a fellow UNHer, Maynard Heckel.
Yes, I remember Maynard very well.
Had a strong aversion and got on my case for the use of the word dirt, because he was very, very much in favor of the word soil. Yeah, I know. And so when I had to deal with him as a neighbor, and also some of our little ag and 4-H events and interests, I had to keep in mind, you know, soil. And
Yeah.
it's refreshing to come back to
Dirt.
what
Yeah.
I was brought up with, which is dirt.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Some of us still miss Maynard. I will say that. And Maynard was the head of cooperative extension in my earlier years at UNH, and I knew him in his retirement as well, as I knew Silas Weeks very well. And Maynard and Cy Weeks of Elliott, Maine, were good friends, and Cy was a colleague of mine, and Ed's, and so forth. The real dirt in the title is a double meaning. You know the phrase, the real dirt?
I'm refreshed this
Yeah,
evening,
yeah.
yes.
That means the truth. The real thing, the real McCoy. Have you ever heard that? I have to explain these things to the young generation of students. The real dirt, the real McCoy, that sort of thing. Double meaning. Okay. And I realize why Maynard would argue that way, because dirt was a put down. Dirt was treated as a negative word. And Maynard's absolutely right. The proper word is soil in that context.
But he still ate all of our vegetables.
Yeah. There's nothing.
I hate to break things up here, but that's one of the roles that fall to the chairman, and we can understand we've benefited from, as you say, 30-some years of experience, and I know John could go on another 2 hours and keep us here, but after reflection about 7 o'clock, I catch hell for not moving things down here. So if someone's got one last boring issue they want to...
Is there a last issue? No. Okay, well, let me just very, very quickly say, if any of you folks got any good food, let me know. I'm in the market. I want good food, and I want it from Strafford County. And most importantly, I want it from Durham, because that's where I happen to live. But I want it from Strafford County before I want it from more distant places.
You can pick it up?
We did that in the 80s. We were going up to the northern end of the county for chickens, for eggs, for potatoes, for a lot of food in the 80s before we had any significant farmers markets.
Yeah.
Does that count products like soap and coffee that
Did you get the last of them tonight?
Yes, because that's jobs and that's economic development in Strafford County. Yeah, coffee processed in Strafford County, but obviously not grown in Strafford County. That's jobs in the county. That's local business. So we want to support local, independently owned business in all areas of life, first and foremost, before we support anybody else. Yeah, that should be the way it is. If any of you want to pick up some handouts here, I have a few handouts for you. If any of you want to buy books, $15 each. That's the cost of printing, and the money goes to UNH, not to me, to recoup the cost of printing. $15 each because they're loaded with color. Or if you want to order them, they're $20 each because there's shipping charge associated with it. But I did bring copies of the books if anyone wanted to make any purchases. Thank you very much, Ed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I grab some handouts before you
Okay, according to the agenda, the next thing is to approve the minutes.
No.
If it's about a half hour.
It has a big broadleaf. No.
Want to make a motion? Okay, Mr. Chairman?
No.
Not as long as...
We are looking at item 2-1 is the draft minutes of September 29. Okay, and since I did make that meeting, I'd be able to make a motion on the passage of those minutes, and I'd make that motion that those minutes be approved as submitted.
Calling for a motion on...
Okay, it's like a peony. And you pull it, and
Right.
you get what you can.
So you make a
Break it
motion.
off.
I'm making the motion.
And it'll slip.
I'll second
Roll
that.
it again.
Moved and seconded by
Yeah, so
Tom.
you dig out a chunk,
Any
that big.
corrections or
I want to give
additions?
urban farmers.
Okay, sure, I'll get you.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the minutes of
My blender.
That's 30.
With vinegar.
representing aye?
Aye.
Really good.
Okay, so I owe you.
You're doing an open window. Take it in fire.
Other business?
Do it through the blender, and then take a
So it's
little strainer
$30.
and save the vinegar, and then put the horseradish.
Anyone here have other
Like that, the
business?
skin of your baby jars.
Cynthia, you're going to cover this now?
If you use like a mayonnaise jar, you know, widen them. Exactly.
I do.
So, anyway, the smaller jars, because it just.
Excuse me, ladies. It's at the minutes you just passed,